Next, we're going to work on the backlights that go in this area. I've already done a little practice with this. This is kind of what I've come up with. There's two different ways of making this ribbing, and I kind of like this way better. This first method, I just deleted the area in between these, and for the second method, I took part of, or I added in an extra edge loop in between the ribbing and then pulled it out on the x-axis, and I kind of like the look of this one better than this one. But for this first one, all you would have to do is delete the area in between these if you like this one better. But I'm going to be making mine like this. So this is what they look like all the way around. Fairly low poly, not like crazy low poly, but I believe it's, there's enough. The level of detail is pretty much necessary to get decent results, I think. So we're going to be trying to make these. These bottom two are pretty much the same in terms of the center. There's not a lot going on for the light itself, but behind the light there is some stuff going on, but we're not going to worry about that for now. We'll just keep it simple like this. That'll be what we're going to be doing for these two. And then this one is a lot similar to this top one that we made. It's got 12 LEDs, it's got that area around the light, and then it's got this center area, except in this one you kind of see the light that's there, and then in this other one you don't really see the light that's there. But I'm sure there's probably one in the center there too, so this may even be exactly the same as the one that's up top. But we'll be trying to make this anyway, so I came up with something similar to this, and then you'd put the LEDs behind this area, so that looks okay. Not amazing, but looks okay. So we're going to get started. We're going to go back to our file, and we're going to press tab to go to edit mode. And if you haven't already moved your cursor, you can just left click on the back of the bus, left click over here, and we're going to create a circle. Again, we're going to use 12 vertices because that's how many LEDs we have going around this area, the same as before. So we want to use 12 just to keep it a little easier in this case. Then we're going to do RX and then 90 and press enter. And before I forget, I'm going to close this window and this window. I had a suggestion to try it out like that, give you guys a little bit more viewing space. So I'm going to press T and then N. T closes this window, N closes this window. If you want to open them again, just do the same hotkeys, T and N, and that will open and close those two windows. We're going to leave them closed for now. I'm going to do S to scale. You can do Control 1 for back view, Z for wireframe, G to move this over, S to scale it down, and try to get it somewhat in position for this first one. The reference has kind of an oval shape, but it's definitely a circular shape. It's definitely not an oval shape, so we're going to leave it as a circle and just kind of get it relatively close to the reference. The size of it we can change later, of course, so it's not overly important. And then we'll just bring it forward a little so that it's kind of right about here or so. It's going to be a little easier to work if we actually don't have all this other stuff distracting us. So what we can do is go to vertex select mode and then press P and choose selection. That's going to separate this circle to a different object. Then we can tab to object mode, right click to select this circle, M to move it to a new layer, and select this bottom layer. We're going to move it down to the bottom layer for now, and then click on this bottom layer, and now it's just going to be the circle that we see. So we can tab back into edit mode, Alt right click on the circle. You can do Control 1 for back view if you want. So there is a bit of depth to this, or a bit of thickness is what I'm trying to say. And yeah, I mean, you can see it on this side how there's a bit of thickness to it. So it's not just going to be flat like this. We want to do E to extrude, right click to cancel, and you can even either scale it in a bit or scale it out a bit depending on what you feel is appropriate for your circle. But you just want to have a little bit of distance here to give it a bit of thickness. Then you can go to face select, alt right click, E to extrude, right click to cancel, bring it forward on the Y axis, and try to get a similar length to this. It's hard to tell because this is not a picture from the side, it's more of an on the back, so it's harder to tell how far back it goes, but maybe something like this is appropriate. Then what we can see is the circle area kind of goes to its full length at the middle, then it goes less, and then this closer part actually is pretty close to the beginning where it started. And I think you'll understand exactly what I mean when we start moving these around. So like the center part here would be right where it's supposed to be, so we can deselect those two. Just go to vertex select and hold shift and right click to deselect those. Then bring this back slightly and deselect these four and bring it back slightly again. And then we can deselect these four and bring it all the way back, or at least relatively close to this. And then you can see we're starting to get that shape that the light has in the picture, where this outer part's further out, and then this part's really close to the light, which would allow the light to go in this direction, but it would block the light from going in this direction. I'm guessing that's the purpose of having it shaped like this. So now we can press T. It's going to bring this back open. Make sure you're in object mode. Go to tools and turn on smooth shading. So it doesn't look great at the moment. That's okay. We're going to change that. We're going to press tab to go back into edit mode, T to close this. Switch to face select. These back faces we're not going to need, so we're going to alt right click, press delete, and choose faces. Next thing we're going to do is go to edge select. You want to make sure all of your stuff is in the correct position before you start doing this. So if you want to adjust any of these, like if I wanted to select this edge and bring it back slightly, you want to do all of those adjustments right now before we continue. So if you want less or thickness or more thickness in this area, all the adjustments you want to do right now. Then once your adjustments are done, you're going to alt right click, alt and shift right click, so you get these two edge loops going around like this. Then you're going to do control B, mouse wheel up once, that's going to help correct the shading. Do a relatively small bevel, but not too small, and then you can see the shading start to improve. We're starting to get a nicer looking outer area to this. The next thing to create is that ribbing on the inside. At least that's the term that that's the way that I'm referring to it, as ribbing, because it kind of looks like ribs, I guess. But it doesn't go all the way to the end. The ribs kind of stop a little bit before the end of this, but they do seem to start very close to where the light is. So it's as if they were like shifted downward closer to the light. And also, like, the area that they go on is that larger area that is blocking the view, or blocking the rays of light going in this direction. So in other words, they would be right here is where the ribs would be. So what we're going to do is tab back into edit mode, go to face select, and we're going to select the faces where the ribs are going to be. So we're going to select this face, and we're going to hold control, and we're going to right click to select all these faces. We're going to do shift D to duplicate, right click to cancel, shift H, that's going to hide everything except for the duplicated area. We're going to switch to vertex select. We're going to do 3 for side view and Z for wireframe, and we're going to select these two vertices here. Then we're going to do G twice and slide them to the front. This will just help when we're doing when we're adding an edge loop. So if we do Control R, you can see that it's nice like that. Previously it would have been like this. That's why we did G twice and slid these forward, so we get nicer edge loops when we do Control R. And that's all we really care about at this point. So we're going to do Control R, left click, and drag this forward. This is going to act as like the ending point. This is where we want the ribs to stop, or at least a little bit before that point. And I kind of tried to count them. It's hard to see them, but I think there's approximately 6 ribs. So we're going to do Control R, mouse wheel up until you have number of cuts 6. And then you're going to left click, right click. And then switch to edge select, and then alt right click, alt and shift right click to get all those 6 edges. Then do Control B, mouse wheel up once to get 3, and then left click. Then we're going to do Control minus. That's going to select the very center edge of each one of the ribs. And we want to deselect all the edges that are on the top and all the edges that are on the bottom. So you can either do it in edge select or you can switch to vertex select. You can use whatever deselection method you want. I'm going to use box deselect, which is B then middle mouse, click and drag. So B, click the middle mouse, drag a box, and that'll deselect all the top and bottom ones. Then what we're going to do is we're just going to move our view a bit, and we're going to bring this in on the x-axis some. So bring it in this direction. And we can already see how that's starting to turn out. We are getting some strange shading, but I'll show you how to fix that in a minute. So we're going to do 3 for side view again, Z for wireframe. Now what we want is an edge loop in between each one of these ribs. I'm going to make a vertex group. So I just did Control Z to undo those. So we want to do Control R, left click, right click, and we're going to make a vertex group to make this a little easier. So we're just going to click on this, click the plus sign, and click Assign. So with this selected, just click Assign. Control R, left click, right click, and click Assign. Control R, left click, right click, click Assign. Control R, left click, right click, do Assign. Control R, left click, right click, do Assign, and then select. So now we have all of those middle edges selected here. We want to deselect the top ones again, so you can do whatever selection method you want to deselect the top and bottom. You can do box deselect or circle deselect, whatever you want to do. Once you're done with that, you're just going to move these in slightly, just like we did with the other ones. And now we're starting to get that little ribbing effect going on there, but I may have moved these a little bit too far out. Something more like that's a bit better maybe. I just did 3 for side view, so what we want to do is delete everything that's not those ribs. So we want to alt right click here, alt and shift right click, alt and shift right click, do delete and choose vertices. So now we just have the little ribs here. We can do A to select all of them and bring them in slightly just to get them away from the rest of the mesh there. And I'm going to try selecting and adjusting that little inner area to try to make that a little better. So this may not have been as good as this one. This one came out a bit better. I actually had more spacing on this one, so what you would want to do is make sure you have better spacing if you want ones that look more like this. I'll just go through it real quick what we would do, I think, to fix this to be more like my original one. So I'm going to take this, I'm going to do Shift D to duplicate, right click to cancel, tab into edit mode, Alt H to unhide everything, and we'll bring this one down a bit. Make sure you're in edit mode when you're doing that. And we're going to select one of these ribs, do Control L, delete, and choose vertices, and we're going to do the selection again, the duplication again, and all the stuff again until we get nicer looking ribs. So we're going to go to face select, select this face, control, right click to select this, shift D to duplicate, right click to cancel, shift and H to hide everything except this. Go to vertex select, go to side view by pressing 3 on the number pad, Z for wireframe, select these two vertices, G twice, slide them up, Control and R, left click, slide it up, switch to edge select, Control R, mouse wheel up 6 times, left click, right click, Control B, mouse wheel up once, left click, Control minus, switch to vertex select, B to box select, middle mouse deselect, deselect the top and bottom. Now bring it in on the x-axis slightly. Make sure you bring all of them in on the x-axis. Then we're going to do Control R, left click, right click, and repeat that all the way over here. Switch to edge select, or actually you can stay in vertex select, Alt and Shift, and right click on all the newly created edges, deselect the top ones, deselect the bottom ones, and bring it in slightly again on the x-axis. And that will give you hopefully some better looking ribs. And then you just want to deselect all the parts that are not part of the ribs, so Alt right click, Alt and Shift right click on both of those, delete vertices, select, Control L, bring them slightly away, and then you should have better looking ribs. So this is the one we made the first time, looks okay but not great. This is a little bit better spacing, so it looks a little nicer, I think, but it's up to you what you want to do. Just compare it to this, pick which one you like. I'm going to go with this one, so I'm going to press Tab, Alt H to unhide, A to deselect. So now we need to fill in the center area. This one's the easiest one, so we'll make one for this real quick. All we're going to do is Alt right click on this middle edge, or the center edge that's furthest down, so this one right here on the bottom. Then do Shift D, right click to cancel, E to extrude, right click to cancel, Alt M at center. With this vertex selected, just pull it forward some, and then tab to object mode, press T, turn on smooth shading, and then press T to close this again. So there we go. That's the basic shape of this light. To make this one, we're going to press Tab to go to edit mode, Control L, then Control I. That's going to invert the selection. Shift D to duplicate, right click to cancel. We'll bring this one down a bit again, so now we have a new light area. You could even bring it up some to be above, just like this one's above. Again, we're going to Alt right click, Shift D to duplicate, right click to cancel. And we want sort of a flatter area for the LED lights, so we're going to do E to extrude, right click to cancel, S to scale this down. This will be that flatter area where the LED lights sit behind. Should be this area around here. Then there is kind of this bump right here, this ring that goes around where the light is. So we're going to do E to extrude, right click to cancel, S to scale this in. And I'm actually going to Alt right click and scale this other one out because I think mine was a little bit too much scaled in. Then we can Control R, mouse wheel up, left click, right click, and bring this forward some. Then Alt right click on the very center one. Now we want to make that circular part for the light. So we're going to do E to extrude, right click to cancel, Alt M at center. And again, we're going to pull it forward to give it some shape. We're going to do Tab to go to object mode, T to bring up this tool panel and turn on smooth shading. Doesn't look the best yet, don't worry about that. Tab to go into edit mode, and we're going to want to do Control R, left click, bring this in. That'll help us on that one. And we can do Control R, left click, and bring this all the way down, then left click, then H to hide, Alt right click on this, S to scale this in slightly, then Alt H to unhide it. That's just to get another support edge loop in the center there. And I want to kind of take a look at what I did on this other one because it kind of looks a little better. So I only had one of these loops here. So we're going to go to Edge Select, Alt right click, Alt and Shift right click, delete dissolve edges, get rid of those, Control R, left click, right click, and bring this forward some. So the other one only had one edge loop there. And maybe that looks better, maybe it doesn't, it's up to you. But I think this circular area around is kind of too big, so I'm going to do Control Z on that until I get back to this. And we can actually just do Control R and slide this up, and then Alt right click, delete, dissolve edges, then do Control R, left click, right click, and then bring this forward. So that basically just made that area slightly smaller, is all that did. So that should be good for now. If you want your third light, you can just select this, select make sure you get one edge on the light, one edge on the rib area, and one edge on this outer casing. You can do Control L, then Shift D, right click to cancel, and then bring this down. And there's 1, 2, and 3 lights, just like they would be over here. We don't have the stuff behind the light yet for this, but that should be fine. This is pretty good for now. So what we can do if we want is we can do Shift D, right click to cancel, then press M and move it to the first layer. So now we have the lights on our first layer. Tab into edit mode, Z for wireframe, A twice. It's going to select everything and then just bring them forward. You can do Control 1 for back view and then bring them up into position. This one's relatively in position. We need to position the other two, so we're just going to select an edge here, B to box select, select all those, do Control L just to make sure you get everything, bring it up. And then do the same here, make sure you select everything, do Control L, bring it up. May need to scale my lights down a bit. I think they're a bit too big. And they're also going in the wrong direction apparently. So to fix that, fix them being in the wrong direction, you see they're like totally opposite of what they're supposed to be. We can do A twice, then RZ 180 and press enter, and that will rotate these into the correct position. And I think they actually need to be moved over some and perhaps back some. And maybe even in my case, I think I want to switch this to individual origins and scale them down slightly. And then just reposition them as necessary by selecting everything on one light and moving it according to however you feel you need to move it. This one's sticking through a little bit, it seems. So I may want to select all these and just bring them in slightly. Bring them over in this direction just to try to make sure that it's not sticking through at the bottom. And I think that looks okay. maybe bring them up slightly. Again, so it's not sticking through the bottom really. But that looks fine to me for now. So we have these lights in position. They have that outer area. They've got the ribbing and they've got all this. So what we can do at this point is just save it. Just go to File and Save.